All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to pick up where we left off with Maniac Magee on page 8 at the beginning of chapter 2. Now, remember, don't just be, passively listening and reading along with the story. We have things to look for. Our 6 reading signposts. The author is telling us things there, so we have to be on the lookout for those contrasts and contradictions, those aha moments where when a character suddenly realizes something, those tough questions where a character asks himself or herself something really difficult that doesn't have a clear answer right away. Words of the wiser, when another character, who's usually older and more clever with more experience, takes the main character aside and gives them some advice about life and stuff like that. We have our again and again signpost, when the author repeats something over and over. The author's trying to tell us something. And lastly, we have our memory moments, when the author interrupts the flow of the story and flashes back to an older memory. So be on the lookout for them. We're going to add to our 6 signpost reading notes, as you can see right there. And let's continue the story. Here we go, chapter 2. Everybody knows that Maniac Magee, then Jeffrey, started out in Hollidaysburg and wound up in Two Mills. The question is, what took him so long? And what did he do along the way? So I'm going to pause right here because a lot of people think this might be a tough question, and maybe you think it is. It wouldn't be wrong. The thing is, if you look at the definition of the 6 signposts, what a tough question is, it's when a character asks herself or himself a very difficult question. We stop and ask, what does this make me wonder about? And here it's just kind of the narrator, so I'm not going to include it as a tough question. If it were Jeffrey Magee asking it, then I would include it. But that's why I'm not including it in my notes right here. Sure, 200 miles is a long way, especially on foot, but the year it took him to cover it was about 51 weeks long, more than he needed, figuring the way he could run even then. The legend doesn't have the answer. That's why this period is known as the lost year. And another question, why did he stay here? Why Two Mills? Of course, there's the obvious answer that sitting right across the Schuylkill is Bridgeport, where he was born. Yet, there are other theories. Some say he just got tired of running. Some say it was the butterscotch crimpets. And some say he only intended to pause here, but he stayed because he was so happy to make a friend. So pause right for a second. Did you catch the signpost? Yeah, hopefully you caught that there was an again and again signpost being used here, because the author, he repeats something over and over. The some say he, some say, some say. So the author is repeating that, so we want to stop and ask ourselves the anchor question for that signpost. Why might the author bring this up again and again? And I'm kind of thinking it has to do with, nobody really knows. It's the lost year. Nobody knows why he stayed here in this Two Mills area. People really don't know. Some think this, some think that. But the truth is, we don't really know. If you listen to everybody who claims to have seen Jeffrey Maniac Magee that first day, there must have been 10,000 people in a parade of fire trucks waiting for him at the town limits. Don't believe it. A couple of people truly remember, and here's what they saw. A scraggly little kid jogging toward them, the soles of both sneakers hanging by their hinges and flopping open like dog tongues each time they came up from the pavement. But it was something they heard that made him stick in their minds all these years. As he passed them, he said, "Hi." Just that. "Hi." And he was gone. They stopped. They blinked. They turned. They stared after him. They wondered, do I know that kid? Because people just don't say that to strangers out of the blue. So let's keep going. I didn't catch any signposts right there. No aha moments, no contrasts or contradictions. That's how I greet people when I pause it. So we're just going to keep reading. Chapter 3. As for the first person to actually stop and talk with Maniac, that would be Amanda Beale. And it happened because of a mistake. It was around 8 in the morning, and Amanda was heading for grade school like hundreds of other kids all over town. What made Amanda different was that she was carrying a suitcase, and that's what caught Maniac's eye. So, boom, let's say I just caught another signpost. In fact, the author kind of clued us in because it said what made Amanda different. The key word is Amanda is different here. And if you got your, say, your bookmark out right here, when a character does something that doesn't match what you'd expect, we need to stop and ask, why would the character act or feel this way? So Amanda's going to school and she's carrying a suitcase. What 11-year-old takes a suitcase to school? That's a contradiction. So I'm going to go to my notes. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm going to say, okay, this happened on page 10. I noticed a contrast and contradiction CC. So what was it? And say, yep, it was Amanda's carrying a suitcase. So I want to stop and ask myself, why would the character act this way? And so we don't know like hardly anything about her right now. So the answer I came up with is, I guess she might take school and learning very seriously. I mean, it's like she's going to work. She's bringing a suitcase. So let's find out. Let's keep reading. Let's see if I'm right. That's what caught Maniac's eye. He figured she was like him, running away. So he stopped and said, hi. Amanda was suspicious. Who was this white stranger kid? And what was he doing in the East End where almost all the kids were black? And why was he saying that? Okay, so again, this might be another contrast or contradiction because we have Maniac, who's white. He's in the East End where almost all the kids were black. So when we come across a contrast or contradiction like that, we want to ask ourselves, why would the character act or feel this way? So for me, right here, I'm going to say Maniac is doing this because he doesn't know better. He's not from the area. Remember, he's been running around for a year and doesn't really know the ways of this town of Two Mills. So that's why I'm saying this is a contrast and contradiction. Let's keep going. But Amanda Beale was also friendly, so she stopped and said, hi, back. Are you running away? Jeffrey asked her. Huh? Said Amanda. Jeffrey pointed at the suitcase. Amanda frowned, then thought, then laughed. She laughed so hard she began to lose her balance, so she set the suitcase down and sat it on so she could laugh more safely. When at last she could speak, she said, I'm not running away, I'm going to school. She saw the puzzlement on his face. She got off the suitcase and opened it right there on the sidewalk. Jeffrey gasped. Books. Books, all right. Both sides of the suitcase crammed with them. Dozens more than anyone would ever need for homework. Jeffrey fell to his knees. He and Amanda and the suitcase were like a rock in a stream. The schoolgoers just flowed to the left and right around them. He turned his head this way and that to read the titles. He lifted the books on top to see the ones beneath. There were fiction books and nonfiction books, who did it books and let's be friends books, and what is it books and how to books and how not to books, and just regular kid books. On the bottom was a single volume from an encyclopedia. It was the letter A. My library, Amanda Beale said proudly. Somebody called, gonna be late for school, girl. Amanda looked up. The street was almost deserted. She slammed the suitcase shut and started hauling it along. Jeffrey took the suitcase from her. I'll carry it for you. Amanda's eyes shot wide. She hesitated. Then she snatched it back. Who are you? She said. Jeffrey Magee. Where are you from? West End? No. She stared at him and the flat-soled sneakers. Back in those days, the town was pretty much divided. The East End was blacks, the West End was whites. I know you're not from the East End. I'm from Bridgeport. Bridgeport? Over there? That Bridgeport? Yep. Well, why aren't you there? It's where I'm from, not where I am. Great. So where do you live? Jeffrey looked around. I don't know. Maybe here? Maybe? Amanda shook her head and chuckled. Maybe you better go ask your mother and father if you live here or not. She speeded up. Jeffrey dropped back for a second, then caught up with her. Why are you taking all these books to school? Now I'm going to pause right for a second because some people keep seeing these questions and they're probably thinking, aren't these tough questions, Brother Battelle? And remember, a tough question, if you look at your Signpost bookmark, splat out, tough question is when a character asks himself or herself a very difficult question, something that doesn't have a quick answer. And you can see this right here, why are you taking all these books to school? In the next sentence, it says, Amanda told him. Why aren't you from here? It's not where I am, it's wherever. These questions have answers right away. That's why I'm not going to call them tough questions. Tough questions are just that. They're tough, they're difficult, they're hard. They take a bunch of thinking. So that's why I'm going to say that these aren't tough questions. So let's keep reading the story. Amanda told him. She told him about her little brother and sister at home who loved to crayon every piece of paper they could find, whether or not it already had type all over it. And about the dog, Bow Wow, who chewed everything he could get his teeth on. And that, she said, was why she carried her whole library to and from school every day. First bell was ringing. The school was still a block away. Amanda ran. Jeffrey ran. Can I have a book? He said. They're mine, she said. Just to read, to borrow. No. Say, please, what's your name? Amanda. Please, Amanda, anyone, your shortest one. I'm late now, and I'm not going to stop and open up this thing again. Forget it. He stopped. Amanda. She kept running, then stopped, turned, glared. What kind of kid was this anyway? All grungy, ripped shirt. Why didn't he go back to Bridgeport or the West End where he belonged? Bother some white girl up there. And why was she still standing here? So that you might call a tough question, because Amanda doesn't have an answer right there. I mean, here she is. We know she really values her books. That's why she takes some with her in a suitcase every day so the dog doesn't eat them, so her brother and sister don't crayon all over them. And here's a kid she doesn't know. She just met a stranger, a white stranger in the black part of town where she lives, and he keeps annoying her, and she doesn't know why she's still standing there. So if you wrote that down, you want to make sure that you stop and ask, what does this question make me wonder about? And I got to be thinking that it kind of makes me wonder about the person that Amanda is. She's clearly a nice person, a caring person, because she's black, he's white. The town is kind of separate, but she's still talking to him. She's very nice and polite. So it kind of makes me wonder about how people get along. And sometimes, she knows she's got to go. She knows she's got to go to school, but she's still standing there talking to this stranger. And I know that I've gotten in situations like this where I know I got to be somewhere, like I'm late for an appointment. I know I'm supposed to be somewhere, and yet I still stay, and I'm talking to somebody even though I know I got to be somewhere else. So that's the kind of thing that this tough question signpost is trying to get us to think about, is why do we do that? We know we got to be somewhere else, and yet we still stay even though we know we're going to be late. So let's keep reading here. Why was she still standing here? So what if I loaned you one, huh? How am I going to get it back? I'll bring it back, honest, if it's the last thing I do. What's your address? 728 Sycamore. But you can't come there. You can't even be here. Second bell rang. Amanda screamed, whirled, ran. Amanda! She stopped, turned. Oh, she squeaked. She tore a book from the suitcase, hurled it at him. Here! And dashed into school. So I'm going to pause again. I caught a signpost. Say, I got my bookmark right here. Did you? What signpost do you think was there? Yeah, the contrast and contradictions signpost. Absolutely. This is not, Amanda takes her books from her house to school every day just to protect them. And here she is just giving this kid, a book of hers that she clearly values. Why would she do that? To say that's a contrast and contradiction. Amanda wouldn't act like that. The book came flapping like a wounded duck and fell at Jeffrey's feet. It was a story of the Children's Crusade. Jeffrey picked it up, and Amanda Beale was late to school for the only time in her life. So there's another contrast and contradiction. She is not one of these people who's late, okay? So here's where I put my thoughts in for this last one. On page 13, there's contrast and contradiction. Amanda gives Jeffrey a book. And so I got to go to the anchor question. Why would the character act this way? And say, I'm not too sure why. Maybe she's just frustrated, and she knows she won't get rid of Jeffrey until she gives him what he wants, even though the book is very important to her. So keep reading, guys. Keep going. I'm going to stop right here. I won't finish the next section, 14 through 21. Do that on your own. But I will catch up with you and start reading again on page 22 for chapter 7. Take care. Enjoy.